people are on a plane heading into Reagan, and they're being diverted, and they're watching CNN. They're live streaming themselves of a plane that went down before them. All of the seats have the TVs, and all of them are watching CNN about a plane crash, which is, again, it's a surreal thing when you're thinking to yourself, because most people, when you're in the air, the last thing you want to think about is a plane crash, let alone watch an actual video and live stream of a plane that went down, just minutes before you. But it's frustrating that we have to go out and start fighting when the reality is people lost their lives. And seeing the cameras around a bunch of people last night who were standing around waiting for their loved ones, not knowing what happened, including this man whose wife had just sent him a text that said she was going to land in about 15 or 20 minutes and that she loved him and she'll see him when she gets off the plane. And he's just standing there, kind of not sure, still kind of holding out hope that maybe that there was going to be some sort of happy ending, that there was going to be a Sully moment. Remember Sully Sullenberg? But, even though it crashed, that a lot of people got off, it didn't happen. And, we watch stuff now in real time, but we also want answers in real time. And these things take time. And for us, we have a very small attention span. We do. We have a very small attention span. And I know, because I've talked to several people, how frustrating. Oh, why don't we know? And I'm like, we don't know because it happened less than the earlier day was like less than 12 hours ago. This happened. And these things rarely happen. That's the other thing. Because the minute you hear this, and my daughter asked me last night, my stepdaughter, she's 14. She says to me, God, it feels like planes are crashing all the time. I said, well, they're not. We're beyond safe. As they'd say, we're the gold standard of everything. And that includes everything pretty much in the world. When you want to talk about, is there grilling, RFK Jr., the reality is when it comes to pharmaceuticals, we're the gold standard. When it comes to everything, we are the gold standard in the world, including at times arguing for no reason whatsoever. But this is so very rare. That's why there's so much coverage, because it doesn't happen. Most people have no idea when the last time there was a plane crash. It's been a while. It's been an absolute while for the last time we had a plane crash. I think it's been 15 years since we've had a plane crash. But it was again, watching all of this unfold last night, it's a tough thing to watch, but then watching the politics of it, because I'm not that guy. Right. I know there's a lot of people out there. I was telling my wife last night, I don't know how some people do it, living in the world of outrage, because so much of it's theatrics. And I just don't do that. I'm not a theatrical kind of guy. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And in this business, sometimes that makes, people freak out. And even today, I was listening to Trump, and I understand the frustration. I think the DEI stuff is insane. And remember, at one time, I lived in a state called California, who was the first one, by the way, to get rid of the affirmative action insanity, because it got challenged and they overturned it. It was the first one to do that. Then they went to the DEI craziness. But I understand the frustration, but I don't think we need to make it politics. Maybe I got the people that this time yesterday, while we were doing our show and we were laughing about yacht rock and that lady that weighs 500 pounds and she can't get into the lift because she's so big, and those people were going about their day. And within 12 hours, they were gone. Then think about that for a second. Husbands, wives, daughters, sons, brothers, boyfriends, girlfriends. And we don't let anything go. Even CNN got into it last night when it came to the wackiness, trying to blame, like hinting like, oh, well, we're doing this thing and there's a transition period.
Look, it's January 29th. We are just 9 days out from a presidential transition, an administrative transition. The FAA administrator resigned at the end of the Biden administration. So there is no permanent confirmed FAA administrator right now. This is going to be a time when there's going to be a lot of public communication and a lot of investigation of what happened here. What do you anticipate this transition period is going to mean what happens today and tomorrow and in the coming days as we find out what happened here.
Well, first of all, not having the head of FAA, that's not a big deal. Just, you act like, well, hey, that guy that doesn't know how to fly a plane, didn't really know anything about aviation, he's not here. So all you who fly planes and all of you who get planes ready and all of you who are air traffic controllers, we're going to have to hit pause until we get another person there. That's just insane. What do you think's going to happen? I don't know. They're just going to all start falling from the sky. You don't need it. It doesn't do any good. It's ridiculous. And it's frustrating. It is. And, like I said, this want to know everything, too. And that's part of just human nature. We want to know stuff, right? Whether, how many times we talked about, well, if somebody dies near your age, you want to know, oh, did he get hit by a bus? Or was it something that could happen to me? Because I'm not going to get hit by a bus. Or, there's that sense of mortality. It's the human nature side of stuff. And, last night, that thing broke into pieces. And of course, it originally started out as, can they rescue somebody? And this is the perfect example of the insanity. I started watching it because I had to get up early. I started watching it. As I'm watching it, I'm thinking to myself, okay, it sounds like they've got some people and they're getting them off and bringing them in and that they're survivors. And people are like, oh, we know there's 4 or 5. There was no survivors. 0 survivors. That thing broke into several pieces.
What is being described to me is gruesome, that they've been finding the bodies, that the collision broke the plane into at least a couple of parts. The helicopter can be seen a short distance away. This source described that the helicopter may have been upside down at one point. Just devastating details. Also, the source is describing a situation where, because of the state of the bodies, there will be some complicating factors in terms of the body count.
And just think about that for a second, how hard they hit, the fact that it broke up and they're finding, bodies. And think about the men and women out there who are the divers who are working in this kind of stuff too. It is devastating. But for me, again, I love politics. I eat it up, do it for a living, and I have fun with a lot of other stuff in life because that's who I am. But I do get frustrated at times with some of the, I got sent so many conspiracy theories last. Within 5 minutes, Barack Obama was on that helicopter. I was like, really? Really? And then that thing was done on purpose. There was nobody driving it. There was nobody flying it. You're like, can you let it go? Can nobody let it go for a minute? No, they can't. They can't. And some people, you do it purposefully because you like the clicks and you like the likes and you like all that stuff. Don't buy into it. Here's one thing though. It was always an if, for a lot of people, but it was never for me. It was always a when. When was this going to happen?
This is really staggering that this has happened, and there have been close call after close call involving commercial flights on the runways of commercial airports, major airports in the U.S., a spate of incidents that really took off in 2023, none of them ending up occurring with a midair collision like we have seen here.
And that's what my daughter brought up. Oh, my God, they're always, close, and they're always... Seems like they're always crashing. No, they're not. They're not always close and they're always crashing the way you think. It's busy. And one thing Trump talked about today, which was absolutely right, and we'll touch on a little bit later, is there are some things when we sit here, we've talked about DEI, which I think is ridiculous. I think we can all agree on that. There are things out there, though, where, okay, if you want to have DEI in a certain office thing and you really want to push some sort of agenda, and nobody's life's at stake, okay, that's what you want to do. If there are lives at stake, it needs to be only the best. Everybody's fine with DEI until, like I said, when the fire started, until they're operating on your brain and you don't want to have the person that they decided to pick because of the gender they chose that day and they're non-binary, but you're not quite sure if they're a good surgeon. No, you want the best surgeon, and you don't care if he's the worst person on earth, as long as he does the job. Same thing with your pilot. You don't want to know your pilot's not really great at flying, panics, has anxiety, is neurodivergent and non-binary and woke, and that's why they're there. You want Sully Sullivan. You want the person where like, hey, this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to happen. We're going to get this done. So when it comes to DEI, everybody always talks a good game, but when push comes to shove, we want the best. And that includes air traffic controllers, which is what he brought up earlier. But the near misses, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, we didn't have social media the way we do now, with live streaming, with being able to go to anywhere and post stuff. The reason is it's all over. Every day there's some sort of story where somebody argues with somebody on a plane and they're getting pulled off, or a plane went a little too far and there's a few injuries and we think are top of mind. They're falling out of the skies and it's a free-for-all in the air.
The fact that this involved not only a commercial flight, which is equipped from top to bottom with anti-collision technology, something called TCAS, Traffic Collision Avoidance System, mandated by the FAA in most commercial airliners since the early 90s, but also the pilots are well trained. The aviation system, commercial aviation in the U.S., is the gold standard for safety. We are the example for every other country. The fact that this happened in D.C., over near Reagan National Airport, some of the busiest airspace in the country and one of the single busiest runways in the national airspace system, is really pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, it's been 15 years. The one thing that we do well is when something like this happens, we rectify. If it is a mechanical issue, if it's an issue with air traffic control, if it's an issue with any of these things, we rectify those situations better than anybody. But if it's human error, and sometimes, and a lot of times it is, that's hard because we still have humans and those aren't going anywhere. At least not until AI takes over. Ooh, geez. It's coming, man. It's coming to take us away. The whole thing last night was just bizarre. I was like, I got a text from one of my other producers from my morning show who lives just about 2 miles from there. Said, dude, something's happened. And I don't think it was an accident, judging by the amount of force that he saw going out there. And then obviously he ended up seeing the video and said, oh, okay, well, that's different. But I go, are you going to go over there? And he went over there. He couldn't get that close, but he says the whole place is lit up like you could not believe, just from all of the lights and stuff. He said it was just different. Because of the space and what's around there, how much military, how much police and fire, it was just, he said he'd never seen anything like it before.